All right, and we're live. Welcome back to Gutter Fighting Secrets. This is going to be Tactical Podcast number 15. We're here today with the Kilo 23 group, and this is a freaking pleasure for me to have this guy on. I've been a big fan of his for a long time. For those of you guys who don't know, the Kilo 23 group is a YouTube channel here on YouTube, and he does amazing content about like espionage, tradecraft, gray man tactics, all of the really cool guy stuff that, we may take for granted. It fits within that whole genre of executive protection, close protection, spy craft, tradecraft, whatever you want to call it. But I'm thrilled to have him on today. So I want to go ahead and welcome you, bro. Thanks for coming on. Great to have you on.
Well, thanks for having me on, bro. I'm really excited about this, bro. I've been listening to your podcast. You've been having a bunch of really awesome people on there, and I really like it, man. So that's why I wanted to do this with you.
Yeah, like I said, I appreciate you coming on, and I've been watching your channel as well. I noticed you kind of revamped it, and you're doing kind of the podcast type format now too. And bro, like the information that you're putting on there is official stuff. Like it's on par to all of the training I've been through. I mean, it literally comes out of a lot of different types of PowerPoints that I've had to sit through and everything. And it is, I'm loving it, man. I'm loving the new channel.
Thank you, man. Well, yeah, so like I was telling you earlier, I wanted to revamp it because I had a lot of those short 10, 20-minute videos, and I thought, if I make everything into a podcast format and kind of redo everything, then I can really get into the details. I can talk for an hour or 2 hours about dead drops, or, you know what I mean? And you can really, really get into the very minute, really kind of boring details when you get that far into it, but that's the kind of stuff that you want to know if you want to do everything right,
Yeah, exactly. And I like the fact that, you're trying to do everything right. You're trying to make it like a very official type of training, and which is exactly what I do with my channel. I want that information that I can put out there to be out there. And obviously this is all publicly available information. And I think it's freaking fascinating, man. The whole like tradecraft, spycraft thing. Let me ask you this. How did you get into the whole, like, espionage history and all of that?
Man, I'll be honest with you, bro. I've always kind of been into it.
Yeah.
Even when I was younger, maybe like 17, 18, 19, I started really getting a lot more into it. And I said, man, this is kind of interesting stuff to know. I'd like to know all this. So I just started cataloging stuff, and after years and years and years, and talking to, CIA agents, all these different people, I've just been building catalogs. And also, I do in real life, I do similar work to what you do. So through that, I've been, adding skills in and doing training courses and just learning, it's just been a whole life of learning, and it's never going to stop.
That's always what I say is the true mark of a warrior. You never stop learning. You're always putting more tools in your toolkit, more information in your resume or whatever, so to speak. So that's cool to hear. Now, what is the Kilo 23 group? Is there a meaning for this?
So that's the funny thing about it is everyone's always trying to find a meaning about it. Some people say I've heard crazy stuff. I've heard everything from like you're trying to take LeBron James to it's the 23rd number in the alphabet, so it stands for W, like white power shit, all kinds of crazy stuff, bro. To be honest with you, that was actually a call sign in a job that I used to do, and I just used that, when I first made the channel, and I just kind of stuck.
Okay, all right. I've been wondering that forever, man. So I'm glad to finally clear that up.
Yeah, man. A lot of people ask me about that. A lot of people think it's about drugs too. They think it's about kilo, like I'm moving 23 kilos or something.
You're using espionage stuff to move kilos.
Yeah, exactly. Smuggling and all that shit. But I mean, we'll definitely talk about smuggling at some point. But I'm definitely not into any of that. It's just, it's just a little call sign. It's because I don't have that much of an imagination. So.
Listen, actually, you bring up a really interesting point about smuggling. And, I've noticed that, It really is. You can draw a lot of comparisons and similarities between tradecraft and spying and drug dealing. And it's funny, burner phones,
Hmm.
anti-surveillance, that type of thing. There's a lot of parallels in there.
It's funny because I've always, and I don't want to speculate on stuff that I don't know 100%,
Uh-huh.
but I always like to compare the two as just being a criminal for your country overseas. You
Oh
know what I
yeah.
mean? That's essentially kind of what you're doing.
Yeah, it really is. It really, and that's a good point. I mean, that's exactly what it is, pretty much. You're robbing, stealing, and cheating people, and trying to get that intel. So
Exactly, man. So I mean, who wouldn't want a job like that? You know what I mean? That's like,
that's the dream job right there, man.
yeah, that's definitely the dream.
You're legit when it comes to that. So, is there a modern day James Bond? Like we all see the movies, but is there actually something kind of like that within the government?
So another thing about that is, if we're going to talk about stuff like that, of course, there's a lot of things that do certain types of stuff that you'll see in James Bond. But how I break it down is, okay, so you have operations officers, you have paramilitary officers, and you have targeting officers. You have all these different types of jobs. But the thing about it is, if you took them all together and put them together, then that would be James Bond.
Uh huh.
But but you know what I mean, like you have the paramilitary guys, so they probably do cool, stuff that's kind of like James Bond, and they're also, shooters, and they do different cool things like that. Then you have the operations officers who are just, sitting there undercover, getting information, gathering information, still doing tradecraft stuff, running surveillance and doing different things, and planting bugs and stuff. And then you have the targeting officer, which is looking for the person that has the access to information.
Hmm.
So if you and there's other jobs too, probably a lot of jobs that I don't even know about. But if you put that all together, then I would call that James Bond.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? I think just, in special forces guys too, like paramilitary side, special activities divisions. I mean, they're probably the closest you can get to James Bond, but I don't think anything is like 100% on point.
Yeah, and that's interesting, and I've heard that before too. And I've also heard, I was talking with a CAG guy, and he was saying that there's a group called the Orange Group or something like that, and they carry out like assassinations. Even though I know it's not really legit to talk about, but I guess it does happen. But
Hmm.
there's different
Well, you
facets.
know
But
about. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Have you heard about the Russian group Unit 29155?
I don't think so. No.
So Russia has this. It's like a secretive unit. It's called Unit 29155. You can Google it, and you'll find some information about it. But the thing about it is, those are the guys, and this is all speculation, but apparently those are the guys that are actually carrying out these assassinations. You have Sergei Skripal, and these mercury poisonings
Yeah.
and Novichok poisonings.
And those guys will be the ones that are actually the quote unquote assassins.
Yeah, so this
Huh.
Unit 29155 is actually, it's like a Russian assassination group, and what they do is I think they focus in Europe, and they just kind of drive around on trains, go do what they got to do, and I'm pretty sure those are the ones that are killing these people. A
Damn,
lot
that's
of the UK
hardcore.
people.
It's like the Israeli Mossad too. Remember when it came out about
Oh
the
yeah.
whole thing in what was it? Was it the UAE or Saudi Arabia where they got caught with that nonsense?
Oh yeah, dude. They got what I think was it I think it might have been Saudi Arabia. Are you talking about the hotel where they
Yeah,
killed the guy
yeah,
in the
the
hotel?
hotel hit.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was crazy, man. To see the breakdowns and everything where they were dressed like tennis players and tourists.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they went and they used all these different passports. And the smart thing about it is they used joint Israeli and Australian or Israeli American passports.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing is that when you like make your aliyah or whatever, you go to Israel to try to live and get your citizenship. Like part of the
Mhm.
stipulation is like we may use your passport at some point, so be careful.
Yeah, for real, for real, man. Did you see they had a like the news like one of the news channels went to one of the person's passports and he was opening the door and he had no idea what they were talking about. I was like, oh
Yeah,
man, I feel
yeah.
bad for that guy.
Me too, man. Because he can't travel anymore. Like he's done.
Yeah, he's gonna be watched like a hawk from everybody.
Yeah, unless, the Israelis give him a new identity or something, which I guess they could, but damn, that's crazy.
They could, yeah. But who wants to go through that? You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
I
You
mean,
build
unless you
up your
kind
whole
of have to.
reputation and your name, and then you have to change it because Mossad freaking messed you over.
Yeah.
But everything for the country. So, can you tell us anything about the farm or the CIA's training
Yeah,
program?
exactly.
Can you tell us anything? I've always been fascinated. I watched the movie The Recruit a long time ago, and I've always been freaking fascinated with the whole process of training our undercover officers for the CIA. Do you know much about that? Can you give us any insight onto kind of what goes on at the farm, quote unquote?
So the thing about the CIA is that's like the most guarded secret is the training
Hmm.
and their sources. So I mean, yeah, you hear about the farm and you hear about different things. Now, I don't know a lot about it, but I've picked up a few tidbits from some of the CIA officers I've talked to, and so you had Drew Dwyer. He's actually dead now. Rest in peace. He actually was saying that because he used to be Marine infantry, so he was saying at the farm when they were training. He would actually he would get blisters on his fingers and he'd be shooting through probably about 10,000 rounds
Damn.
a day. And he was saying that, and he came from Marine infantry, so he was saying that the difference was crazy because he was like, well, Marine infantry, you think I'd be shooting all day, but he was saying that is nothing compared to what the CIA Special Activities Division was doing. So that's a little tidbit. Other tidbits is, I've heard about some of their training. They'll do everything from do fake parties and act like they're dignitaries, and probably have different goals that they have to carry out, or probably have to make relationships with people. I've heard that they have to go out to bars and pick up girls. I've heard a lot of different stuff, but there's a lot of false information out there too. So I don't want to speculate it, but it's probably just as cool as it sounds.
I'll bet you anything it is. I would probably do anything to go through that because it would kind of make
Yeah.
you into a Superman, I think.
Oh yeah, no
That
doubt,
leads
no
me
doubt.
into another question, actually. So when I was training over at, I guess I'm just going to leave out the name of this place I was training, but they were one of the guys who works closely with these type of people was telling me that they actually put out, especially on YouTube, a lot of disinformation and specifically old information just to kind of mess with our enemies or mess with people trying to find out too much information. Have you ever heard that they're going to put out like old training films and disinformation to kind of like not let you know what the real tactics are, or make you think that you know how to run surveillance when you really don't?
Well, I like I said, I don't want to speculate on that, but yeah, I mean, I guess it's not a bad idea for them to do stuff like that. I mean, there are some old like 60s, 70s CIA training videos on YouTube and stuff, and I don't know. I mean, it could be old information. Usually, if they're doing that, then they have better information now.
Yeah.
Um,
I think usually,
but
I mean, like you said, it's a lot of those older films that you see are exactly what they are. They're just old films that are in the public domain now, and they're still
mhm.
awesome to watch. You pick up a lot of really great stuff about, how to do surveillance or how to freaking like. There's the old World War II training films about espionage that you actually, I think a lot of that is still relevant. But
Oh yeah.
I didn't know if you had heard that or not because it came from a reliable source that actually, yeah, they're trying to discredit or like make people learn the this type of thing, but actually the tactics have changed so much that it's irrelevant.
Well, I wouldn't doubt it because I mean, a lot of these intelligence agencies do have, whole entire divisions set up for like disinformation stuff, and you know, it's it could happen for sure. But like I said, I don't know, and I haven't seen a lot about that.
So when we're talking about like the farm and CIA and cool guy tradecraft stuff, I mean, I've always kind of personally felt like this is the best stuff that you could study to make yourself a hard target and like really survive. Because when you really look at it, most of us aren't operating in a team. We're not, in a freaking like crazy militia or whatever, if the world were to, turn into like we see with the pandemic now, if things were to get crazy, the best chance you have of survival is all this gray man stuff. So can you kind of give us maybe some tips on how guys could incorporate this tradecraft and stuff into our daily lives?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of stuff you'll see, and this is, people will say if you want to be an expert on something, you just want to master the basics. So I would suggest mastering a lot of counter surveillance stuff. You know what I mean? Doing counter surveillance routes. Funneling people through choke points, different stuff like that would be helpful. Also, just doing surveillance, gathering information, all that stuff is helpful, man. Like, I don't know exactly what if you could be more specific, then I could probably think of a few.
Oh yeah, no
things.
doubt. So, like, for a guy who wants to, for example, stuff hits the fan, and the world's going crazy in the pandemic, worse than now, civil distress or whatever. And maybe he wants to take his family from point A to point B. He's got a cabin out in the woods, but he needs to kind of like operate, set up, survive, gain intelligence from his new place, what's going on. All of these simple like blending in tactics and not standing out. I think really what I'm asking is like, is there a place to go besides your YouTube channel that you can, really gather all this information and start turning yourself into more of that professional type of individual?
Yeah, so I mean, you can, my YouTube channel has some of that stuff. Your YouTube and podcast has that stuff. Chuck Yeager, Prepping Badass, he has a really good one that he does a lot of stuff on.
Okay.
And if you're more into the spy stuff, you can always check out Spycast from the International Spy Museum.
Cool.
The thing that I like about them is that it's not going over any tradecraft, but what you get from it is they talk to the real spies, and they talk about and those spies talk about their stories that they've done, and from that you can pick up information. You can see how things are done, and you can pick up little tidbits about it. But yeah, I mean, there's no, like I was saying, there's no like catch-all thing, but it's just like we were saying earlier, it's just developing all these skills in unison together, and then that in turn will make you a hard target.
Yeah. No, I definitely think you're right, and I think experience teaches more than training or lectures ever really could. So.
Oh yeah. Experience is definitely where it's at. But the thing about like I always say, man, don't take anything for granted, because you can get something from everything. You can learn from the dumbest, and you can learn from the smartest. You can, you can. I don't know.
No, for sure, it's so true, man. There's been plenty of times where I've gone through things like basic, training courses, and I've gotten way more out of that than like a week-long advanced thing. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird, man. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some good things to know. You want to go over some like scenarios?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, for me, like, I've always been really fascinated in dead drops. Like, you mentioned that earlier, and I think it's a great way to kind of covertly communicate with somebody, should you need to. What can you tell us kind of about the procedures and stuff like that when it comes to these dead drops?
So that's funny, because I'm actually I'm going to be doing like an hour or two long podcast just on dead drops. Dope. Just by itself.
Dope.
I'll probably have that out in like a few weeks. But yeah, so basically a dead drop is just, all it is just a way for you to communicate and send different items, whether it be money, papers, information, whatever, to somebody without ever seeing them in person, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically, are you still there?
I'm here, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, that's all it is. It's just a way for you to communicate and send information and, materials to your handler or your spy. And, I mean, you want me to like go through the whole thing?
I mean, yeah, whatever information you could give us would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, basically what you want, what you need. Let's act like we're going to set up a dead drop, just like a mock dead drop.
Okay.
So basically, yeah, I'd have to get with you. We'd have to figure out an area that you want to do the dead drop. And the thing about it is, you want to have two areas. So you want to have the primary area, and then you want to have like a fallback area that you could go to.
Okay.
That could be like the second site B for a dead drop. But basically, when you look at the site, you want to figure there's a lot of considerations you want to do. And actually, I'm gonna pull some information up on this while we're talking about it.
Right. Now, what would the purpose be for having two separate locations?
Okay, so just in case, if anything ever goes wrong, like let's say if something's wrong, if you have a lot of heat on this one site,
Mm-hmm.
if there's something weird going on, if you're seeing people that you don't usually see, if there's an increased police presence, something like that, that would be a good reason to choose another dead drop site.
Gotcha. I mean, you may have been unknowingly followed or surveilled, and they've kind of picked up on the fact that this is some kind of dead drop location. Maybe they don't exactly know you're the individual that's utilizing it, but they know, hey, this is where it's going to be. I've seen some suspicious stuff here. Let me just change it real quick, and I'll go to this other one, and I'll let my handler know or my cutout know or whatever that this is the other one, and we'll just switch it up so they don't know.
Exactly, and the thing about it is, you want to already have that picked out so you can easily just let him know. And the way you do it is you can have some kind of mark somewhere. So like let's say, for instance, the dead drop site is going to be under a bridge. So that's what Robert Hansen used, a dead drop site under a bridge. You know Robert Hansen, who's the big FBI trader.
Yeah, they actually made a movie about that, didn't they? With
Breach.
Yes, Breach.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
That was a great movie.
Yeah, so I think him and his Russian or KGB or whoever, I think it was, when did he get caught?
That was in the 90s, I think, wasn't it? 80s even?
Okay, so then his KGB people, they chose a site under a bridge. And what they did is they have a marking. It could be like a chalk marking. It could be some kind of marking that lets them know that a dead drop is loaded. And so they see that marking, and then it wouldn't be a bad idea to have another marking under the bridge or near the bridge. You know what I mean? So you can kind of so you can kind of pinpoint it. So maybe you can see something from far away. You can see the mark to know that it's loaded. And then when you go in towards it, you have another mark indicating kind of a little bit closer to where the actual physical dead drop is. So you have that. There's a few considerations that you want to go over. Is you have the purpose of what you're trying to do. You need to look at anticipated enemy action. Who's around there. Is it a public park? Is it weird for you to be there, and when and what times is it weird for you to be there? Different stuff like that. Also, you want to think about the local population. What do they do? Are they there a lot? Let's see. Oh, and I was going to say too, bro, I'm recording the audio too, so I can send you this audio if it cuts out or anything.
Yeah, great. And likewise, I mean, we'll just, like we were saying, primary and secondary. So
yeah.
Cool.
And then, so let's keep going. So then you have the items. So when you're, like, let's say if I was going to put some money together, I want to package it so it'll be waterproof. And also you want to take into account for how long it's going to be there. Do you anticipate it's only going to be there for a day? Do you think it's going to be there for weeks? You know what I mean? So there's different things you want to do there. It's a lot of common sense stuff.
Now, when you're talking about locations for these dead drops, and you mentioned a public park, which I would assume would have its ups and downs, is there a time where maybe you'd want to put it either in a kind of a secluded field or somewhere away from like the public? Because like I feel like if I'm going to be digging in the ground, I don't want to be seen like opening up a false rock or digging,
Yeah. Well, so it's funny because actually I don't know if you heard about this, but back in 2006, the British actually got caught by the Russians, and what the British were doing is they had a fake rock, like you said, But the thing about it is, it was like a Bluetooth rock, and so they never had to dig anything. They never had to pick up anything. All they had to do was stand next to this tree that had the rock near it, and then they had their phones, and they could just link up to the Bluetooth and get all the information they needed, and it just looked like they're sitting out there hanging out on their phone.
Oh, that's crazy.
And then they'd be gone.
Yeah, so that's interesting, and you bring up a really fascinating thing. Is modern technology when it comes to dead drops now. You wouldn't really even necessarily have to retrieve a physical item unless it is, I don't know, like say a weapon or something like that. It really can mostly be done with the use of, like you say, the Bluetooth rock technology.
Mm-hmm.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. If it's just information, then it can easily be sent over. Let's talk about if you're trying to pick up a weapon or something. Okay.
Yeah.
So with that, of course, you want to do the same thing. You want to package it correctly. You want to make sure that it's at least water resistant. Now, there are some people who will take it and submerge it actually in water. So if you're going to do that, that could be a good way to do it. But you want to make sure that it's that it's actually like submersible and waterproof.
Yeah, I've also heard of guys spraying it down with I think it's WD-40 or some kind of lube, so it helps against corrosion for long-term storage. I would assume that you'd have to be very careful, even with a Glock or something, submerging it in water to waterproof it so it wouldn't get all messed up.
Yes, yeah, exactly. You definitely would want to be careful, and I'm not a corrosion expert or anything, but yeah, you could definitely find a way to make it submersible.
And I guess the nice thing about that too would I would assume, I'm not an expert on dogs, but I would assume a dog would have a hard time locating it.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. For if you were going to have a weapon and you were going to have some ammunition in there with it, what I would do is first I'd take each round and I'd try to waterproof each round individually, and then from there I would load it up into the gun, put it in there, and then put it in probably. Because you got to think about the buoyancy levels too. So the weight versus buoyancy, and you could put it in. I'd have multiple layers. So maybe I could, let's say if it's a Glock, I'd break it down, put it into like some kind of bottle that I can close it, and then I take that bottle and maybe put it in, wrap it around, and probably multiple trash bags.
Yeah.
From there, I'd probably take another piece, just to add some weight on there, maybe like a rock or something. And then I'd maybe, let's say if it's in like a lake or something, throw it in there. The thing about it is retrieval.
Yeah.
So how is he going to retrieve it? You want to have it connected to some kind of line or something that he can just grab it, or maybe, he knows exactly where it is and how many feet into the water it is. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things to think about. That's why it's tough to talk about it, and it would be better to kind of have us sit down and actually plan it out. And actually, we could do that if you want. For maybe an episode, we could just sit there and just plan out the entire dead drop.
That would actually be fantastic. That would be a great exercise.
Yeah, exactly. I love doing stuff like that.
Oh, me too, man. It got the wheels turned into my head just now. As far as the whole, the retrieval, man, you'd have to think about if people were around, maybe you could go swimming and this and that. So many things to think about with that stuff.
Yeah, and so that's if dogs are looking for, if they're specifically looking for any kind of explosive residue or anything from the ammunition, that would be a good way to do that. Another way, is maybe, put it in a tree or something. I mean, they're probably still alert on it, but I don't know. What do you think about that?
A tree might not be a bad idea. I've also heard a lot about putting these packages in parking garages, parking structures, up, on top of a rafter or something. I know that supposedly when you go to foreign countries, the around the embassies within a certain radius, if you really were looking, you might be able to find some interesting packages. Simply because that's a contingency plan, right? Whatever happens, and it happens, and you've got to go. You might need to stash a cachet of what, like a disguise, some money, a Glock, something, right?
Right, pass information, passports,
Yeah.
false IDs, stuff like that for sure. And I'm glad you were talking about that because I was going to say that is the difference between caches and dead drops is exactly that. The cache, you're going to be sitting there, and you might do it for yourself, or you might still do it for one of your allies.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of I think a cache is more of a long term thing,
Yeah, and you'd want to be careful,
as opposed to dead drop, which is kind of a more of a quick.
No,
Okay.
absolutely a quick thing, and I think a dead drop. I think you're right. It's more of like you need this cash, and I'm gonna hide it so you don't have to like expose yourself too much, and you can just grab it. Where a cache, like you're saying, it's a long term thing. It could be long term storage. The interesting thing about a cache though is you've got to be really creative where you hide it, so another person doesn't pick it up, especially if there's things in there like false identification or weapons.
hmm Well, hey, bro, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, it's been cutting in and out, but it's a lot better because I think it's my internet, man. Because I had a interview last week and it was cutting out way worse. But
Okay.
at least it's running better now.
Well, at least we've got it on both ends, so hopefully one recording
Yeah,
will
exactly.
be better.
So we could I'll send it to you, or we can send it to each other.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But check this out, Will. All right, so check this out, bro.
Yeah.
So you're talking about false identification. What about if you were just able to get real identification?
Oh,
Right?
so you're talking about like official passport from official sources.
Official passport from official sources. So check this out. A lot of people don't know this, but a lot of countries in Europe and really probably all around the world have these things called it's like a birthright citizenship,
Yeah.
birthright dual citizenship. So let's say, for example, I know Italy does this for sure. So if you had a ancestor that came to Italy, and if they naturalized before like 1860 or after like 1920 or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
then you have by birthright you're allowed to go to the Italian consulate and once you provide the documentation, you can become a dual Italian U.S. citizen.
Uh-huh.
And there's other countries in Europe where you can do that too. But the reason why you might want to focus on Europe is because once you become a citizen of Europe, you essentially become a citizen or once you become a citizen of one specific country like Italy or Germany, you basically become a citizen of the whole European Union. And so what that means is Europe has this thing called the Schengen area. And if you become, let's say, for example, I become an Italian citizen or I become a German citizen, now that country is part of the Schengen area, that means that I can move and work in any of those countries within that Schengen area, which is basically all of Europe, without being impeded. And everyone's always talking about false identification stuff, but if you can just go through and if you can get the real identification, then why wouldn't you? You know what I mean?
No, absolutely, absolutely, and that's a fascinating thing right there. Is that whole birthright concept? I know a lot of different countries do it, and I just got back from Turkey, and they will do that for anybody who's basically got the money. And it's not that much money. I mean, it's more than I make certainly, but if you were able to come up, I think it's like I don't recall the exact number, but there's also countries where you can straight up buy citizenship.
Oh yeah, you talk about Saint Kitts and Nevis. They have, I think, you can buy citizenship for like 100,000 or something.
Yeah, which is pretty cool, man. And this also comes into the fact that like when you're working, I mean, if you were actually working with CIA or NSA or whatever, they also provide you with official documentation. I would assume probably even an official European type passport or something like that. If I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, the thing about the CIA and really the United States and a lot of these other countries too, a lot of the big players, is that their stuff is if it's not the real stuff, it would fool even the makers of the real stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's way better than we can even imagine. These guys who are making this stuff for the CIA, NSA, Russia, China, they're so good at it, and it probably just fools everybody.
Now, when you go into CIA, I don't know if you know this, but do they give you a new identity to use while you're working for them?
So I've heard different things about it. I don't know if they give you a new identity, but I know that obviously you're gonna have to lie to your friends about what you do, and everything, and you're basically gonna have a new identity. I don't know if you'll have to change your names. They might. What a lot of CIA people will do, or a lot of not CIA people. I don't want to say just CIA people, but a lot of spies in general. So this could be Russian, Chinese, European spies. Is they might keep the same first name, but then change their last name. And so what that does is, so like let's say if I'm in Colombia and I see somebody who I knew from like Maryland, he'll go up to me and he'll say, "Hey Seth," and he won't say my last name because hopefully he doesn't say my last name. But the thing about it is you don't want to have a completely new name. It's a bunch of half truths. So you don't want to have a completely new name just in case, God forbid, if someone saw you from another country who knew you from your country and they went and said, "Hey, what up, Jim?" And then, the person who you're with is like, "Jim, what is he talking about?" So you want to kind of use your same name, but then probably change your last name when you need to.
Yeah, that's a great trick right there. It would be very awkward if, like you said, your new name was Jim, but your old name was, George or something, and somebody recognized you.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's another thing too is if you look at when I talked to Andrew Bustamante, he was in the CIA for a while. He said one thing. He said that really it's all about half truths. So you only want to turn the dial a little bit. You don't want to completely lie about everything, but you want to use half truths, and that just makes it easier to keep your story straight. It makes it sound more believable, and then it kind of takes a little bit of pressure off of you to make you more comfortable in the whole situation.
Yeah, and that's why I think a lot of these guys, right, they'll talk about, well, I work for the State Department or I work for the embassy. They're saying, they're admitting they work for the government, but they're not actually saying, what they do.
Yeah, so and it's not just the CIA. So, Russia does the same thing. China, Europe, they all do the same thing where they pose as, diplomatic entities. They could be like a junior ambassador or something like that for the State Department. But, obviously they're not. And I don't want to get too into it because I don't know. You know what I mean?
Right. Nobody really does.
Crazy thing.
Unless you're working for them, in which case, you'd have to sign all these NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, and not be able to talk about this cool stuff. So.
Yeah, exactly. You can't ever talk about it or anything. No sources and methods. Anything like that.
That what is the name of that thing I always run into? The ITAR, International Treaty on Arms. Regulate. Anyway, there's all these different things that prevent guys, for our viewers, guys who actually work for places like this from giving out, like you were saying, methods, sources, tactics, whatever. Which makes it so hard for guys like me, and and I would assume you who are just fascinated with this stuff, to really get like the actual information.
Because that's the thing about it is I have no affiliation with the CIA or FBI or anybody. I just really get into this stuff. You know what I mean? It's just really interesting to me to learn it, and it's practical.
It's like I was saying, man, it's so practical. And for anybody, guys are out there, the preppers and whatever, they're studying all this, like, paramilitary, small unit tactics, all this. But, look, generally, you're not going to have a bunch of other guys with you unless you're, like, some crazy prepper that also know the same type of stuff, right? But this stuff is so great because you can utilize it solo or teach it to another guy quickly. And if you need to, you can blend in, get information, information is what I think all of us right now, especially, are living and dying by. Is what's going on in the world while we're all locked down in our homes.
Yeah. I think the most useful skill out of any, no matter, you can be like the most badass spy ever, but I think the most useful skill is to be able to create relationships with other people.
Yeah.
Because that is almost invaluable. And, you do, yeah, like, that I think that is what's going to save you more than anything, is just having good relationships and being able to create good relationships and using psychology and different stuff like that.
And that's something that's always fascinated me, is like you'll hear guys on the internet talk about like CIA seduction techniques and like CIA psychology and how to lie better and stuff, but I think they actually probably do teach you a lot of that stuff when you go through the training.
Oh yeah, I mean, the thing about it, and from my idea, and I don't have a better idea than anybody else, or a better idea how this stuff works than anybody else, but the way I see it, I see, at least, like, let's say, for example, operations officer, I think it's just a lot of, sitting there, talking to people, creating relationships, running sources, you know what I mean? Just, seeing, checking up on your sources, seeing how they're doing. You have different ways to recruit them. So the three big ones is money, sex, and revenge. Those are the three things that will get somebody to go against their government or go against their company and to spy for them, to spy for you. You know what I mean? Is do they want money? Do they want revenge? Or do they want sex? You know what I mean?
That's interesting right there. Those are three big motivators right there. And I think you always hear cash is king. People will do the damnedest stuff for money. Sex too.
Evil stuff.
Oh yeah, evil
yeah.
Stuff.
Oh yeah.
And revenge. I mean, that makes any man crazy. Revenge.
Exactly. So it all, and the reason why I like that is because that can anyone can see one of those for themselves. Like like maybe I I really want money, so money is going to make me flip. Or maybe you really want revenge, so revenge is going to make you flip. Or maybe, this person really wants, sex or wants to be loved, and so that can make them flip. So those three things kind of, I don't know, those three things kind of cover every aspect of most people.
There was a movie in the 90s, and actually it's an incredibly relevant movie for these days. It was called The Siege, I believe. And there was a big part of that movie was this female CIA officer who was basically sleeping with this guy to, keep him as a source or as a asset. And it really just kind of shows you how much sex and romance and somebody needing to be, psychologically loved by somebody else, how big of a thing that really is with intelligence work.
Oh yeah, it can make people go crazy, man. Like I said, bro, if I almost guarantee that you can probably get like 99% of people with one of those three things. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And also you want to worry about timing too. You want to time it correctly to where like, let's say you want to time it. You might be watching somebody who has access to information that you want, and you want to, you're targeting them. You want to time it to where, maybe you're going to try to pay them off. You want to time it to where their finances are looking rough, or maybe they're going through a rough patch. That's when you might want to introduce this and say, hey, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's another big advantage that these big agencies have, is the surveillance aspect, because you can really get a glimpse inside somebody's secret life, especially nowadays with all the technology. When they're tight on money. If they haven't gotten laid in 6 months. If they're fucking pissed off at their boss. Whereas the average guy, like you and I, we don't have access to that information unless we're doing some serious stalking or something like that, to really understand the right timing of it all. Which is fascinating to me. Do you know much about signals intelligence?
Yeah, so I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really know all that much about signals intelligence, but I think it's really amazing what the NSA can do. The NSA is amazing, bro.
That's some crazy stuff right there, man. Edward Snowden, and he was talking all about how deep this thing really goes. It's pretty incredible, I think, that the resources that all the governments in the world at this point have to really like be able to know almost anything they want anytime.
Oh yeah, and the thing about it is even if they're not listening to you actively and all that, they can always just go back through the records and see. They can always look it back up,
Yeah,
see
they
who you were
probably
talking
have
to.
like literally everything recorded, and they could just access it like whenever.
Yeah, well, that, and then also, I don't know if they have this, but they could implement a thing to where they could have buzzwords.
Mm.
They could have certain words that they could just sift through and say, like, let's say if they get some human intelligence and say like there's Operation Bumblebee or something, they can type in Bumblebee and just go through millions and millions of text messages and everything and see which ones hit, and then they can probably what they could do is add in more words and just see which one would match up. And
Yeah.
they could do anything, man. No one's safe.
Yeah, that's really crazy, man. There's no getting away from it.
It's pretty wild. But that's why I like to say I'm glad that we're on America's side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and 100%.
Because I mean, you got China, you got Russia, but I would definitely be more afraid to be. I would definitely be more afraid to be an enemy of America than any other nation in the world.
Oh, dude. I mean, I always say, dude, like America's the best place to live. I don't care what anybody's opinion is otherwise. I mean, I'll listen to it, but I love America so much, man, and we are such like so above and beyond these other countries when it comes to just our pure power and capabilities.
Yeah, we really are. Like I said, man, like you said, we're the best, bro. No one even comes close to it. And I think I'm hoping that it'll be like that for another, 1,000 years. You know what I mean?
So am I, man. I mean, people are worried about the economy and everything right now, but what I like to say is, look, I'm no economist. I have a tenuous grasp on economics, but everyone in the world is suffering right now. So when we all start to come out of this thing, look, America is freaking dope. Like, we have the best economists. We have the best, like, people with the best knowledge. Yeah, it's going to be some tight times. We're all going to have to tighten our belts. But I think, honestly, just due to the fact that everyone else is as well, we'll be okay.
Well, let's put it like this, right? So let's say if China disappears, yeah, maybe we'll have a little bit of a little bit of an economic problem for a little while. But if America disappears, the whole world is going to have a problem for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yeah, no, that's a solid point. Now, I mean, just about China real quick, and I don't want to ever get in. My channel specifically is never political. I don't ever politicize anything. But China, I mean, what are your kind of thoughts on where they've been, where they're going, what's going on between our two nations specifically right now?
Okay, so with China, man, it's scary because China they don't get into a lot of shooting wars, but they steal so much intellectual property. And I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if they had people working either from China directly or working for them in every major industry in America. They're like a bunch of rats. Just kind of they're everywhere, bro.
I mean, they got Sun Tzu, right? He wrote The Art of War, which talks all about this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing too is about China. They're in it for the long game. So you have Xi Jinping. He's going to be dictator for life now. Yeah. He changed it up. You heard about that? Now he's going to be dictator for life. And the whole thing about it is the whole CCP apparatus is all they're all in it for the long game. So so that's the only problem that we might have is that America, we might think real short term. We think in 4 and 8 year blips.
Yeah.
But China's thinking in 100-year blips. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So with that's the only and all thing. That.
But the thing about it is, no matter what they're doing, bro, they have so many human rights violations. and their whole society is so messed up that I on it, and now you have this whole coronavirus thing, which a lot of people are saying it came from that came from some kind of bioweapons lab in Wuhan. But
what are your thoughts on that?
What are my thoughts on that?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with Buck Sexton. He's an ex CIA analyst, and he does a radio show, and he was saying that there's almost he was saying that there's a pretty good chance that this virus came from the bioweapons lab in Wuhan, because if you look back in 2006, there was another virus, and it might have been SARS or one of these other viruses that also came out of that same bioweapons lab in Wuhan and also got introduced into the wet markets accidentally. Now, I'm not saying that China did it on purpose, but what I think is because they don't have a lot of, people, they don't have a lot of regulations, so I think this kind of stuff can get out easily. And what are the chances that Wuhan is one of the only places in China that they do this kind of bioweapons research? You know what I mean?
Right. And it's interesting just the way that we don't know much about this virus yet, but it's interesting the way it's kind of seemingly affecting, the way it affects. Like children for the most part have been kind of okay, but men are specifically being targeted more so than women. Older generations. There's a lot that's just kind of weird about this whole thing.
Yeah, a lot. That's what I'm saying. Is a lot of stuff about it seems like it could have been manufactured. Yeah. They could have, I don't know. I want to speculate on it. I'm not a virus expert, but a lot of it something seems kind of off. You know what I mean?
There's a lot that seems like it could have been engineered for a specific purpose, whether that is, intentional outbreak or unintentional. I couldn't ever speculate, but it does seem programmed and engineered in some way for a military-specific purpose.
Yeah, well, the big thing about it is, and this is what Buck Sexton was saying, is if we can, let's say, for example, I get the virus, and then I get over the virus. Now, if I'm immune to the virus, then that's how it should be. Then there's less likely that China did something. But if I'm able to catch the virus again, then that's like there's not a lot of viruses that you can catch them again.
Exactly.
So yeah, if you can catch this twice, then I would say it's almost a 100% chance that China that this is a Chinese bioweapon thing.
Yeah.
But if not, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me too that it seems to be affecting us Westerners even more so than it did the Chinese citizens. Now we don't know if that's a fact because their numbers are obviously skewed, but.
Oh, yeah. I'll be honest with you, man. I think, let's say, how many cases do we have here now? 200,000 something?
299,443 at my last count.
Okay. So if we have 300,000 and China's saying that they only have, 80,000? Right. That's total BS, bro. I bet you they're at 500,000. They have to have more. I mean, of course, yeah, they can shut everything down and they can do that, but I'm telling you, bro, China is not sophisticated enough to stop this type of virus.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they're probably 500,000 cases, but they're not going to say that. They'll never, and that's the sad thing about it is we'll never get the real numbers from them.
No, and I also heard a weird thing, and I don't know how true this is, but I've heard it from several people now, is that they had something like 21 million phone subscribers that just aren't paying their bills anymore and are kind of disappeared. So I don't know what that means, but you never know.
I'm glad that you brought that up because that's that right there, bro. Is that's a good way that we could kind of figure out what's going on. Of course, you got to think maybe some people just aren't going to pay their phones anymore because they maybe can't work.
Right.
But there's probably a lot of people that died, bro. Yeah. That's why they can't pay.
Yeah, it's funny, myself being an EMT, I've been kind of warning people about this for a little while. Hey, we don't know what this thing is. Don't mess around. It's maybe not just the flu, like people were thinking.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy to see how now that it's come into the mainland U.S. And not just Europe, that we're really realizing how dangerous this thing really can be.
Yeah, it's surprising, and like I said, we're learning. We're always learning, and there's always updating. And I don't like to get political either, but a lot of people have been giving the president a hard time, but it's like, we're all kind of learning what this is together, and it's not like he knows, it's not like he can,
I think he did a great job. Just initially, I know he wasn't really with it. He was saying some stuff as he always does, but as soon as he kind of learned what the real deal might be, he took action pretty quickly, which I'm very confident in the fact that, look, we're taking action and we're doing all we can. So.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not too worried about it. I'm just glad that we're still working. You know what I mean? A lot of my friends and stuff are out of work, and it's sad to see.
It really is. It really is. I mean, there comes a specific set of skills. To quote a great man, very specific set of skills that you and I have, and other people have, that are going to be in demand during uncertain times, and then other skill sets are just not. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the cool thing about espionage, man. And like I said, I'm not trying to make myself like a super spy. It's just I just really love learning in this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%, man. And I've always been upfront with my viewers. Look, I've never had any affiliation with CIA or anything like that. I'm simply just an ordinary guy like you, man. But I've had such a fascination with this for my whole life, and especially gutter fighting secrets. Gutter fighting came from OSS, which was the precursor to CIA. It's all linked together, I think.
Yep. Well, the funny thing about it is, I think it's just some certain type of individuals. Some people aren't ever into it, but everyone who I know who's into this, they've always been kind of into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a fascinating thing, whether you want to, say maybe we've all lived lives before and done this before. I don't know if you're still with me here.
Oh, I got you. Sorry, cut out.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, I don't know if, people have all lived lives before and maybe been through things and done things before, or if it's just built into our DNA, different lineages and heritages, and, it's funny to see how different people are drawn to different things.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point that you bring up about lineages and different stuff like that. Like it's funny because I've had family members who have worked for this, who used to work for the CIA and did that type of stuff. So I'm wondering if there is something to that. Maybe maybe I just got the gene where I want to learn about it.
It's in your blood, man.
Yeah, who knows, man.
Yeah, if I had a college education, I might apply, but it's kind of too late for me now. So.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, but here's the thing, man. I wouldn't even feel bad about it, bro, because there's so many other cool jobs out there. You know what I mean? You got pen testers. You can basically do the same thing if you become a pen tester.
Now, what is a pen tester?
So a pen tester is someone who literally gets paid to break into buildings, steal information, stuff like that.
That's cool. That's cool. I actually had an uncle that used to do that, and he would tell me all these crazy stories about like infiltrating nuclear power plants to test the security and stuff. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that stuff's badass, man. See, that's something I'd like to get into too eventually. And I've had a few pen testers on, like Deviant Olam, and I'm gonna have some on next week. Brent White and Tim Roberts.
That's cool.
Yeah, they just break in. They do different things to steal RFID card information. They hack stuff. So it's kind of like an Ocean's 11 type of thing. You have like a team of 3 guys, and one might be the physical guy, one might be the network guy, and then you all just come together and make magic.
You know what the coolest part about that to me is that when you get caught, if you get caught, you don't get in any trouble.
Exactly. You just give them that your scoping document, and you're good. That's almost like those letters they're giving out to the quote unquote essential workers.
Right.
It's kind of like that.
Exactly. It's like ninjutsu. It's modern day ninjutsu is really what a lot of this stuff is.
Yeah. It's and the thing about it is a lot of people have this preconceived notion that is so crazy, but it's just like a job, just like anything else, and it's I don't know. It's probably really fun. It is probably really awesome, but
It's
You know,
probably there's probably some pretty scary parts of it as well, especially when we're talking about intelligence work and covert action and all of that. I mean, people get wrapped up in the sexy aspect of it, but there's also a lot I think that kind of is a drawback. Like it's low pay, you have the potential to get tortured and killed, like a lot. There's a lot of drawbacks.
well, that's another thing about being a spy is, okay, let's say if I'm a uniformed combatant, then I have the Geneva Convention. But if I'm a spy, then I'm not in a uniform. I get caught. You know what I mean? They're gonna torture you. They're gonna execute you. There's not a lot of hope for you if you get caught.
Yeah, and that's some scary stuff to think about, man. And I'm sure we've all seen the movies. There was this one movie I saw back in the day which really portrayed this well. Is I think Syriana or something like that with George Clooney. I don't know if you ever saw that one, but I would recommend it. And he gets caught, and Hezbollah starts torturing him, and it's nasty stuff, man.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. Well, that's another thing too about
yeah, yeah.
the what it's like nowadays too is a lot of our enemies are terrorist organizations. So nowadays it might matter less because whether you're a uniformed military or you're CIA spy, you're still probably going to get tortured and killed.
Yeah, and that's you bring up a good point there about like even back in the day with the Cold War, there was a little bit of civility between the KGB and the CIA because they both
Yeah,
realized, we work on the same basic premise, but now, man, you got, Hezbollah and ISIS and those guys don't care about anything.
yeah, exactly. They don't care about the Geneva Convention. They don't care about anything. But the way I think what we need to do is just do the same to them.
Oh, I agree. I agree. People get wrapped up in the whole, the US doesn't torture and, this and that, but like I don't know what the right answer is, but at the same time, I mean, you got to do what you got to do to get done what you need to get done, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny that you say that because when I was in school, I was in a homeland security course, and one of the they had this big thing about torture, and they were saying, do you like what like let's say it's called like the ticking bomb exercise. Like let's say if you have a guy and he's in your custody and he knows where a ticking bomb is going to go off and it's going to kill like 100 people. Is that the time that you're going to torture somebody to get that information or not? So I mean, it's all a moral thing. But at the end of the day, the way I see it is it's just whatever the law is, whatever the agency is going to tell me what to do. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah,
going to tell me how I feel about it. So
exactly. And then you've got, the TV shows like the Jack Bauer 24 where he's like, he goes rogue and he tortures them anyway or whatever, but
yeah, for real. Crazy ass.
I wonder how much
Yeah.
of that actually happens in real life.
Man, who knows,
Who
bro?
knows?
There could be a bunch of rogue CIA agents just going around wreaking havoc.
There
You
could
heard
be.
about you heard about the guy in the CIA agent in Pakistan?
Was that the guy that's in the news recently and they commuted his execution or whatever?
No, so that guy was actually the guy who killed Daniel Pearl. That was a terrorist, I think.
Okay.
So the CIA agent in Pakistan, this happened. I think I don't know. I don't want to say exactly, but it was a while ago. Probably at least like 5 or 10 years ago. But basically, he actually went to jail in Pakistan, and the U.S. government couldn't even help him because I think he was riding on a scooter or something, and he ended up shooting 2 people who were like
Oh,
pursuing him.
okay.
And the craziest thing about it is he got caught with an American flag on him. Like, man, really slipping, my man.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the crazy thing about this. And even I tell people this, I've got a program coming out soon called Travel Safety for Americans, where that's actually just travel safety, and it's 2.0. And I do talk a lot about this stuff for, guys and girls going overseas who are just wanting to stay safe. Nothing, crazy, no espionage or whatever, but we can take a lot of these tactics. And it's crazy because, if you get caught doing something illegal, let's just say in Pakistan, our government can't do anything for you. They can only advise you on like your rights over there. They can't do anything for you, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, it's sad because really, at that point, if you get caught, the only option is to, maybe hopefully I would hope that they would maybe use you as like a bargaining chip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
And it depends, I think honestly it depends on your connections, it depends on the current political climate and all of that. There's just so much to it.
Exactly. So yeah, so like, they might, depending on the government, they might plan a covert action against it to grab you.
Yeah.
Or, they might try to, trade you for some other spies. So I mean, yeah, it's all about the geopolitical situation at that specific time. And that can literally save your life or end it,
Yeah, it's crazy. And bringing it back to full circle here, when we were talking about it's basically being a criminal for your government overseas, it's just It really is, because if you get caught, it's on you. I mean, yeah, well, I guess we'll try to do what we can do to get you out, but you're still breaking the laws where you are.
Yeah, exactly. So but the thing about it is, that's the risk. They know the risk, and they know what they're doing. So, that's their decision.
Yeah, and it's a huge decision to make, and it takes a very special person to put themselves in harm's way for us, the citizens of these states. It means a lot to me that guys go out there and do that and literally risk life and limb, and even sometimes the safety of their families, to keep the rest of us safe.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I mean, these guys really are heroes, and they'll never say that, but they're all heroes,
Yeah, and they never ask for any praise or any, like you said, you'll never even know most of what they ever did, and they, even after they retire, a lot of it they can't talk about, but they are responsible for most of the really heroic shit out there.
Yeah, and well, with CIA specifically, is even after you retire, you're still a target for the rest of your life. You hear about these guys from not just CIA, but from every intelligence agency. They'll die of weird circumstances. You know what I mean? Because it's just like there's always someone there's always gonna be someone looking for you.
Yeah, and you bring up a really interesting point there. Is the whole aspect of CIA spies being eligible for assassination the rest of their lives. I've met a few guys in my time who may or may not do something in that type of field of work, and they're always so protective over the fact that well, I don't, I work for an NGO or I work for this. They literally won't tell you, not because necessarily I mean, obviously they're afraid to lose their job, but it's about losing their life, man. They could be targeted.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, bro, because I had a weird interaction with Glenn Carl. He was in the CIA for 20 years, and he was a part of he was one of the people who blew the whistle on their on the waterboarding thing.
Okay.
So the crazy thing about that is I got in touch with him. Right, I sent him an email. He got back in touch with me and told me to call him. So I call him. I'm talking to him, and the first thing he asked me is do you work for a foreign government? He just totally interrogated me for 30 minutes. And so I was like, okay. And then we were set up an interview for the next day. So next day rolls around, totally ghosted me.
Wow.
Never heard from him, and I haven't heard from him since. Wow. I hit him on Skype, email, called him, everything. Nothing, phone out of service, wrong, everything. It's just totally ghosted me.
Dude, that's insane, man. What do you think happened?
I think he just got spooked, man. I think he thought something. You know what? I think a lot of these guys use a lot of their intuition and their gut feelings a lot. So I think he might have just had a bad gut feeling, and he's like, peace, just peaced out.
Dude, that's crazy, man. Yeah, dude, it's nutty because, dude, those guys who have been in the trenches, so to speak, or currently are, you gotta use your intuition, man, and you gotta you gotta think of it this way too. You and I are reaching out to these guys and saying, look, we want to go on YouTube, put you on our podcast and everything. Also, they might be looking into to you with their current contacts. They might ask their buddy, hey, what do you know about this guy? Da da da. And I know you and I are very legit. I'm sure I won't go into details, but I know you and I are above the board in everything we do. But
sure.
it's just the same point, man. Like, for those guys to come on a podcast in public forum and talk about this, one slip of the tongue could really lead to dire consequences.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about it is, like anytime and I always try to take care with everything I do. Like, I'm sure I'm still on a lot of government watch lists.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that whoever's watching it is at least having a good time, because I like the content I'm putting out. You know what I mean?
I feel the same way, man. And I hope if they're watching and listening to this, which I'm sure somebody is, please enjoy, because this is like dope stuff. But it's
dope, and thank you for your service.
Yeah, 100%. And I think of you and I, what we do, man, honestly, is more like historians. More like
that's all it is.
Yeah.
Just cataloging information and just disseminating it.
And just a quick disclaimer, I know for you too, and I can say this on your behalf, is that if we ever thought that we were touching on something that shouldn't be touched on, just because we both are patriots, like, we wouldn't talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of stuff that I've wanted to do on the channel, and I didn't because it would be something that I wouldn't feel comfortable.
Now, I don't know, Kilo cut out there for a second.
I totally agree.
Okay, yeah, we're back. So I think you cut out there for a second, but you were saying that you agree with that, and there's a lot of stuff that you have thought about doing that you just aren't comfortable putting out there.
Exactly. It's just, and it's not even necessarily a legal issue, but it's just there's some things that you don't want to put out. You don't want to teach someone how to wire a bomb. You know what I mean? You don't want to do all these, certain things that could, hurt people,
No, and I'm with you too. And there's a lot of content that I've thought about putting out, and I just shot myself very short on a lot of these different things. Even specifically things for me, like, I don't really talk about a lot of firearms tactics and a lot of small unit stuff, just for the fact that like there are nut jobs out there, and I don't want to give anyone information. Like, if they want to seek it out, that's on them, but I'm not going to be the one teaching them how to do that stuff.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that all this information is already out there, and so they, and they have these bad guys have their own sources of information. But I don't want to be the one to add to it. I just like to go over generalized, broad terms and stuff. And if they want to get more into it, they could do that on their own time.
Yeah, I feel you on that 100%, man.
Yeah.
With that in mind, man, I think it's freaking awesome what you're doing. You are one of the few guys, and I'm not blowing smoke here, you are one of the few guys who's putting out, relevant training information and historical facts that are relevant for today's stuff. I know a lot of guys out there are talking about, World War II techniques and all of that, but
right.
yeah, it's cool to see another guy out there who's pushing out the same type of content, who is interested in the relevant facts of today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. Like I said, bro, to be honest with you, I didn't even start the channel. I just started the channel as like just to make do a list online for myself that I could access anywhere. You know what I mean?
That was actually one of the questions I meant to ask, is what made you decide to start putting this channel out there?
Yeah, so basically when I started the channel in like 2016, and it all started because there was a lot of, because like we've been saying, my whole life I've just been learning like a lifetime student, and I started realizing that a lot of the stuff I picked up, I've been losing, and I have to go back through. So I decided to start making videos about it online, on YouTube specifically. So I'd have access to that anywhere, wherever I was at in the world, and then I could brush up on anything I want to do. And really, it's helped me learning this type of stuff, because when you can learn something, but when you start trying to teach it too, that's when you really, really have to learn it.
Yeah, it takes so much more of an understanding to teach it rather than just to sit there and absorb it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, keep doing what you're doing, man. I'm.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah, I'm totally like down, and if you ever need any help or need any anything, on my end from our guys over here, you're more than welcome to it.
Well, yeah, bro. What I was gonna say is I want to collaborate with you on some stuff. We need to get together and come up with different ideas for videos and different. Obviously, I want to keep coming back on each other's podcasts and stuff. but I also want to collaborate on some other stuff too. So
Yeah, I think that we could really push some very, very solid content out there, man. Now, are you on Instagram as well?
So I have I think I have an Instagram account, but there's nothing on there. I think I have like 3 followers.
Gotcha.
And yeah, dude, it's funny, bro, because I don't have a following anywhere else except for YouTube. I think on Facebook I have like 30 followers.
Wow.
But on YouTube is really where I have most of my people watching.
That's I mean that's interesting, man. You know, most guys out there like you and I have followers on a lot of different platforms, but I guess, I mean, honestly, man, like, you are a busy dude. Like, you do stuff in your everyday life as well, so it's hard it's hard to manage all of that.
Well, the thing about it is, you know, I've been thinking about it too, and I'm like, man, if I didn't have to, you know, work and I didn't have to do all this other stuff, imagine what I was like. Imagine what we could do with our channels. You know what I mean?
Oh man, forget about it, man. Like, we'd have some serious stuff out there.
Oh yeah. But yeah, man. Like I said, bro, I love it, and like I was saying, I love your channel too. I like checking out. I've been listening to some of your podcasts. Really great stuff. I like going through and seeing this different, you know, different videos that you've been doing when you were testing out the different types of OC spray, and then when you're talking about executive protection, and you know, it's really cool stuff. And here's the thing, bro. Doesn't matter what you do, bro. This stuff is valuable to anybody, no matter what kind of type of work. You know, whether you're a farmer or whether you're a CIA agent, it's all good stuff.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I think you and I kind of push this stuff out there. Is it can save lives. Doesn't have to be, you know, a military guy. Anybody. This stuff saves lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And really, I want to, you know, a big goal of mine is to bring the general U.S. population a little bit above everybody else. You know what I mean? I want Americans to know more than these people do in other countries.
Hey, now you're talking my language, man, and this is a big reason why I put the channel out as well. Is I want to help my fellow American specifically get a little bit more prepared and a little bit more ready, because, you know, we are traveling in uncharted territory here these days, man. Like, shit is getting real, and if we can have all of our citizens hike up their preparedness levels a little bit, then we'd be above and beyond the rest of the countries out in the world.
Exactly.
Well, listen, man, I'm going to close it out here because I don't want to push the video too long, but I look forward to working with you more in the future, dude.
Yeah, no, absolutely, bro. Like I said, if you want to, if the people want to check out my YouTube channel, I'm sure you probably have it linked. And then if you want to check Will's YouTube channel, I'm going to have him linked below, Gutter Fight Secrets. I think we're just going to add this on both of our channels. Yeah, and see how it goes.
It'll be cool, man. We'll link it up, and definitely, guys, from our end, check out Kilo Group 23, and maybe one day you will be bold enough to have an Instagram too, my friend.
Maybe, man. I gotta set my game up, bro. But you know how it is. It's tough.
It's tough, man. It's tough. I'm trying to get on the level of advancing my technology here and understanding of editing and all that too. So there's a lot to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. Well, again, thanks for coming on, and I'll be seeing you around. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. That was Seth with Kilo 23 Group. You can find him here on YouTube, Kilo 23 Group, obviously. Also, check out his website, kilo23group.com is the website. Make sure to stop by it. You know, if you got a couple of extra bucks or two, donate to the cause, guys. He's got really great information he's pushing out. You're not going to find relevant, pertinent information the way he's pushing it out on other channels, really, except mine, obviously. So, guys, I thank you again for watching. Please remember, until next time, that you are your first and last line of defense. And I'll catch you on the next podcast. Cheers, mother flowers.